is entirely to blame for this event. We discussed it several times, and then in my home he would come. On 3 occasions, I tried to discourage him. I said, people don't have time for this sort of thing.
So come here in front of a microphone.
Right.
So we can record it for percent. That's true. I bug him and bug him and bug him. And I think he got tired and he finally conceded.
And so anyway.
This is forward, backwards, and this is the pointer.
Okay.
And this is the microphone. I don't know if you want to use this microphone.
Well, this works.
Yeah.
I'm only a two-handed guy. So, last time he came, which was about, I don't know, 6 weeks ago or something, I said, Roberto, we have to stop this thing. And he said, we have crossed the Rubicon. I sent out the invitation. And so there was no way to stop.
No way to stop.
Okay, so how do I get it started? Push the right button?
Yes, but
I'm gonna get it up there.
we need to turn on the screen. Sorry.
All right, I get it on the screen.
Now we are.
All right, so everyone here has talked about what a great academic I am. And I want to tell you, I want to speak about the unlikely life journey from rural Arkansas to UC Berkeley. And it has often amazed me, actually. Where do I go with this, here or there?
Anywhere.
Okay, there you go.
Oh, you're going backwards, I think.
Yeah, you just.
Oh, I pushed it to the right. Okay.
Which button are you pressing?
Okay, there we go. All right, here we go. I never had a plan. From the day I was born, I never had a plan. I followed Yogi Berra's advice. Probably almost none of you know Yogi Berra. Maybe Dick Benson didn't. Yogi Berra was a catcher for the New York Yankees in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And that's a long time to be a catcher. But anyway, he said, if you come to a fork in the road, take it. And so you scratch your, what does that mean? But anyway, I always said, well, I'll just toot along, and if there's a fork in the road, I'll decide which one to take. And so that's what they do. Now, that almost doesn't fit on there, but I'll tell you what it says up there. My ancestors from France to Canada in 1640. My name there was Bogy, B-A-U-G-I-S, and they came from France as indentured servants to Quebec. And what does that mean? That means that I'll pay your way over here, but you're my slave for 5 years. And that's the way that went. So that went fine, but the English defeated the French in 1763 there and took over in Canada. And so my ancestors anglicized my name from Bogy to what they call Bogy, like that. So it would look more English than French. And anyone who has that name is my relative. So no one else thought to make up a name like that. If you got that name, and if I find you in Los Angeles somewhere, I can go up and talk to you and we'll have some previous relationship. But that didn't work. So Bogy left Canada in 1780 via the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River in a canoe. And first to Missouri and then to a place called Arkansas Post. Arkansas Post is where the Arkansas River runs into the Mississippi River, like that. And so they became fur trappers up the Arkansas River and were actually involved in the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. They were all, prior to that, that was just all quote unquote Indian, Native American Indian land, like 16 different nations, Indian nations all around it. Okay. And my ancestors founded a place called New Gascony, Arkansas in 1832. Now here's I can expand this a little bit. Well, I'll use the pointer here. Oh, that's the wrong one. I gotta back up. There, that's the wrong one. Okay, here was I thought you said push this one to get the
Let's
The pointer is here, this red one, pointer.
Oh, okay, wait.
That red thing right there.
Oh, the little one here? This one?
Yeah.
All right, okay. So here's the Mississippi River coming down from, well, Memphis, Tennessee is right up there. It's coming down the Mississippi River, and it goes down, and here's the Arkansas River. It comes down through here like that, and it runs in there, and there's a place there called Arkansas Post, but it's, maybe they call it Arkansas City, don't they? But I was from a town called Wabaseka, right here. And so we were between the Mississippi River and the Arkansas River, and there was a little place on the river called New Gascony by my French. they settled that place. And so that's very rural area in there. And in my early years, it was a farming village. And someone said today that its current population is like 200 or something. But cotton was king, and that's me standing in a big cotton field. And that's me and my two sisters own a 1960 Chevrolet. That was the last Chevrolet that had a running board. So after that, we had a 1941 Chevrolet, and it didn't have a running board. And so you could sit there and take your kids' pictures on that running board. So, that's pretty much kind of the way we looked. Here's sort of what this town looked like. This was, when I was a small child, I kind of hung out here. But this was already 20 years later. This was a store. My father was part of the company, the WWS company. And this store, here was the US Post Office. And my father was the postmaster, but my mother did all the work. He seldom was there. My father was the postmaster, my mother did all the work. And there was a general store here, grocery store and everything. And over here was a drugstore, which really meant a soda fountain place or something like that, right? So here was the cotton gin. Now this was kind of an old version of the cotton gin because this is a 1962 version of cotton gin, and cotton was pretty much going out of favor by then. But there's a cotton gin, and here was a trailer full of cotton that would be picked either by hand or by machine and brought to the gin. This is sort of a little tractor that pulled it around or something like that. And so that store and that cotton gin was sort of my environment, except the school. I'll show you the school. Now this shows, you can't quite see, but here's cotton gin, there's that trailer, and here was where you waited when you came in. And these were bales of cotton that came out of the cotton gin, and they put them on this truck and they hauled them over here, put them on this platform, and they put them on the train. They were gone. So that's how. Oh, and when I was a child, this was a great pecan orchard, and I used to go there all the time and pick pecans. Now, here's my dad dealing for cotton, bale of cotton. So this is some farmer, he brought this bale of cotton there, and it got all gin and all, and my father would tell him how much it was worth and pay him. Enjoy that, man. And here's home where we lived. This is an updated version. It wasn't quite this elaborate when I was a kid. But so this was all within one block of everything, and that was about all the place was, right? And so, how about my childhood supervision? I call this free-range children. Basically, it didn't matter what you did all day. My mother was in the post office, my father was off running around somewhere. And all I would do, well, I'd go to school, I'd come home, tell them, well, I'm going to go down to the gym and play around there. Or I'm going to go down to the some other place and see some other guys. We made our own toys. We couldn't buy any toys. We didn't have any money, and there were no toys in that town anyway. And if our toy broke, we either fixed it or we destroyed it. So, and that was sort of my philosophy throughout life. You finally got to other things which were more complicated. If they broke, well, you just take it apart and you could fix it. If you didn't fix it, if you destroyed it, it wasn't any worse off because it didn't work anyway. But many times you could fix it, right? I learned to drive cars, trucks, and tractors at age 10. And so, all that stuff was around. There was no one to regulate it or anything. And there were no lock on the house doors. No one put locks on their doors. Didn't need them. I mean, there was nobody gonna break in. And we left keys in the car ignition. It's a different kind of arrangement. I got my first .22 caliber rifle when I was 11. We didn't have all this trouble about buying firearms. I got my first 16-gauge shotgun when I became a teenager, when I was 13. Recreation was mostly hunting and fishing. And so I now joined the Boy Scouts. But here's hunting and fishing. There's my father in his duck blind. And he's got ducks hanging on here. You can't see it, but there's a big black Labrador dog there, retriever. And so this is some waterway. He would shoot the ducks, they would fall down there, and this dog would run and get them and bring them out. So that was a very efficient operation for doing that. And of course, we love to fish too. So here he is sitting on, he would take me fishing and hunting. Never was very polite to me. He always said everybody else did it better. But anyway, that's the way it was. There he is on the farm, sort of talking to some farm laborers about what they've done. Probably with some politics he was talking about. I always had a job after I was age 10. I did home chores, brought in the wood, that's how we burned firewood. Fed the chicken, the cow, the horse, and mowed our lawn, did all that stuff. And I had a paper route, delivered papers to 55 houses for my grandmother. She was the official, had the contract for the paper, but I was just, and I mowed lawns for the neighbors for money, swept floors in the store and the post office. I painted at the cotton gin. I was a movie operator. We had a movie, and worked in a drugstore, and I was a tractor driver for many farmers. The movie operator was interesting. This is a kind of a side effect here. And this movie, this was a highly segregated environment, as you might imagine. I mean, this is the 40s and 50s, but everything was highly segregated, right? And so in fact, if you drove to, there was one service station, but similar thing, if you drove to anything and had to use the facility, say the restroom, there were 4 versions. I mean, there were whites and colors. In a way that solved a lot of problems, just say color, white and color. And then there was men and women, so there were white and colored men, white and colored women, so they had it for restaurant. That's the way life was. But in the 50s, farming, this was after World War II, farming began to change quite a bit. And it became mechanized. And not only that, after the war, a lot of the farm laborers moved to other places to get jobs. They moved to Chicago or someplace like that, and work in automobile industry. And so they then had to, interestingly, they had to import Mexican laborers. And so they would drive down to Uvalde or someplace and pick up these trailer truck load of Mexican laborers, maybe 100 in one trailer truck, and drive them up to this place, and that's where they lived and would pick cotton or whatever. But I worked in the movie theater, and so the big question is, movie theater was divided right down the middle, whites and colors, right? So the big question was, what to do with the Mexicans? And so, I was part of we trying to figure it out. I said, well, they're not quite white, but they're not quite what we call colored, but they are colored. But then we solved it in a practical way. We said, we have more empty seats over on the white side than we do in the color side, so they go on the white side. And that's how that was a practical solution to that problem. We didn't worry too much about other aspects of it. As a school I went to, the Wabasika School. This was the room where I had first, second, and third grade, all with the same teacher, and all with all three grades in there at the same time. And we never had more than like 10 people in a grade, so maybe 30 people in the room, right? This was an auditorium. So, so my academic path was the following. I attended school at this Wabasika school for grades 1 through 10. Grades 1 to 3, as I said, were in the same room and with the same teacher. Miss Atheline Whitten was her name. Well, the class size was about 10 people. No one ever went to college from there, to my knowledge, from that school. And so the principal told my mother to send me somewhere else for 11 and 12 to go. So we had no idea where to go, but there was one of the guys that I had driven tractor for had gone to this prep school in Tennessee. He flunked out the first year, but he told me, that's a good place to go. So I went, came to that fork, and I took, we'll go to this Columbia Military Academy prep school in Columbia, Tennessee. That'd be a class of 90 or something. There I was. I was a pretty young looking senior or cadet at that place, right? And then, but then the real problem came along. What do you do now? Graduated me. So there was all kind of forces on me to return home and work the farm and eventually take over the farm there, right? My parents, they were okay, but my mother particularly wanted me to come home. And the CMA, that was a Columbia counselor, proposed going to college. And others suggested military. Actually, I was an undergraduate. And aptitude tests we had there concluded I should be a fireman. But we didn't have any fireplace where I was from, so I didn't work. And so, but my sister favored college at the University of Arkansas. So I applied there. And wasn't too hard to be admitted, I don't think. And so my sisters also recommended that I join a fraternity. That's what was big, right? Join a fraternity. And they arranged an invitation to parties that summer in Little Rock to go there. So I went to this party, supposed to be a whole weekend thing, and I went there, And these guys were just all around getting drunk and carrying on. And so I concluded that was not going to be right for me. And so then I talked to the host's brother, who said if I was serious about engineering academics, I should go to Rice. He was a student at Rice and civil engineering student. And it was in the middle of summer already, you know, and we're talking 2 months or less before. And so I said, that sounds very interesting. I don't particularly like this path I'm on here. And so I contacted the registrar of admission at Rice University and asked him, what should I do? What courses should I take in University of Arkansas so I can transfer next year to Rice? And he said, well, we don't take a lot of transfers, but why don't you send me your stuff? And so I did. And oddly enough, they admitted me. So I went down there the first day. I mean, my father bought me an old used car and said it's 450 miles that way. That's how I went to college. It's 450 miles there. And so I drove down there and I went to meet this director of admissions. And I went into the office, sat down. The first thing he said to me was, I think I made a mistake in admitting you. But he said, having done so, we can give it a try. The first thing, you need to take 2 weeks of, well, they had already told me this, take something they call bonehead English. Bonehead math. You have to take 2 weeks of bonehead math before the semester starts. So, yeah, doing that. So that's what I did. And, so that's most unlikely. So I applied to Rice and somehow accepted. I almost flunked out the first year. And all 3 of my housemates, we rented a house, and all 3 of them failed out, didn't come back the second year. But I met some friends at a boarding house that were studying in mechanical engineering. So I decided, okay, I'll major in mechanical engineering. I had no idea what to major in. That's how I majored in mechanical engineering too. And then I got a summer internship at General Motors in Indianapolis, Indiana, after my second year. And I hated it. I hated what I saw. Everybody talking about slide roof. There were these acres of engineers with their little desks, and they all had slide roof. They were designing compressor blades for jet engines. Just huge number of them. So I looked at that and scratched my head and said, that does not sound like me. I'm more of an outdoor type guy. I couldn't do that. So I changed my major to geology. I said, I'm more like an geology guy. You know? And so, but in the last semester of my senior year, I decided I made a mistake to take that path. So and this is what's great about, Berkeley's great, but it's not like a small private university. So I go into the person who's in charge of curriculum and said, I made a mistake. I really would like to change back to mechanical engineering. And this is the start of the second semester of my senior year when I'm going to graduate. And so, any sane person would have kicked you out and said, you already had one chance, right? So he said, I don't know, maybe he was kidding or something. He said, luckily you've taken math every semester. I said, yeah, I like math. And so he said, well, here's what you do. You take these 7 required mechanical engineering courses next semester. 6 of them have a laboratory, and some of them meet at the same time. But he said, but that's what you would have to do. And he said, then in summer, you go to the University of Texas and you take 3 required junior mechanical engineering courses. And then when you come back in the fall, if everything goes well, you can be a senior mechanical engineer. And so the senior then 2 years in a row, once in geology and once mechanical engineering. But then the last semester of my senior year, oh yeah, I already said I changed back to ME. Well, I completed the BA in geology and ME and decided to go for an MS in ME. But the next move was the best ever, and I married my wife Patricia in 1961, and that was the best fork I ever took. And then had to go to the Army, because I was in the Army Reserve, ROTC, and it was go to the Army. So I went to the Army, and got in the Army. I was only supposed to be there 6 months. It was a special reserve program. But just as I was about to get out, the Berlin Wall went up, and in Germany. And so somehow that was a big excitement in the US for military. They said, oh, you have to stay an extra year now in the military. And so I did that. And just as I was about to get out, the Cuban Missile Crisis came on. and so I was so afraid of it, I wasn't going to get out. But anyway, I got out of there. And then there was one of the professors at Rice who really inspired me when I was doing my master's degree. And he said, I need to go somewhere else for a PhD. You shouldn't get all your degrees in the same place. And so he had been from MIT, and he had worked in industry and all, but he was a very knowledgeable guy. And I liked him a lot. And he said, told me where to apply to and everything. I got admitted to various places. And he said, so I went to Brown to study with Eli Sternberg. Someone has mentioned him already in our thing here. So I applied to Brown, and I got support there. And when I got there, I discovered that Sternberg was on a 1-year sabbatical in Japan. So what can I do? I came there to work with Sternberg, and he was in Tokyo. So I just took a lot of courses in applied math division the first year. Then I hooked up with Sternberg in the summer when he came back. But then in August, he said, I'm leaving Brown and going to Caltech. I said, well, I came here to work with you. And so I kind of went home and discussed it with Patricia. I said, maybe I should see if we can go to Caltech too. And so I went back and said, how about if I come also to Caltech? And he said, well, okay, if you can work it out. And so there again, small private university, Brown University. I went to the person who was in charge of the graduate program and asked her, what's the plan? I mean, what could I do? How could I go to Caltech now with Sternberg? And so she sat down and worked it out. She said, well, if you take these courses and you pass your qualifying exam, then you can go to Caltech and do your research for your PhD there. And so that's what I did. I took those courses, I passed my qualifying exam, and we headed off to Caltech. So we drove from Providence, Rhode Island to Pasadena, California with all our belongings in a VW boat. I had shipped my books, that's the whole thing, and we just carried the rest of our clothes. So I finished my PhD research there in about a year, a little over, and I became a teaching and a research postdoc. After about 1.5 years as a postdoc, I had to decide industry or academia. I had an office mate there. Oh, by the way, Caltech, another small, great university. So how'd that work out? They said, okay, you can come, and we'll give you a student, like an office like a student. You don't have to register here, but you can take any course that you want to here. His father came the year after I did, Shield there. Tom Schill. His father came to Caltech also, so I took courses there from him, from Sternberg, and everybody. And this is a side, I'm sure I'm running over, but one of the great things there was Richard Feynman was there, and another Nobel laureate, a guy named his colleague, and they had won the Nobel Prize for eightfold weight. I never knew what eightfold weight was, but he had this program. Those two Nobel laureates had this program that once a month they would give a seminar in a big room, and it was something called Physics for the Common Man or something. And you'd go there, and he would explain to everybody from the street about quantum mechanics. And when you left, you thought you'd know all about quantum mechanics. But, so that was great. So, I had to decide industry or academia. You know, I still didn't know. Well, I had an office mate, and he said, I'm going to go work for San Diego. I said, okay. Then I decided I'll try academia. Now, so I applied to MIT, UCLA, Berkeley. I say Cornell, but that's not right. UCLA? No. Oh, I've forgotten what. Anyway, so in three of those, I got invited to come and visit, spend a day, like we do here now. But so yeah, someone pointed out how different it was, though. So then the chair of the Applied Mechanics division of the department, we had 4 divisions in, Paul Nagby, he contacted me and said, I'm coming down to Caltech. I'm going to give a seminar. I'd like to meet with you and take you out to dinner and all. So, okay, we do that. So we did that, and then he went back and he sent me a letter and invited me to come spend a day here. So I came down and spent a day and loved it. I mean, it was a beautiful February day. It was one clear and nice, and you know, we had come out of Providence, Rhode Island, where in wintertime it was dirty snow all over everything, you know, it's everything. But anyway, I got offers from all of those places, except Cornell. And so why did I choose Berkeley over MIT? Everybody said MIT is the #1 place. And, you know, why would you go there? Well, it had to do with the difference between Berkeley and MIT. And we can probably have some MIT graduates here, but what I was telling them, to be a faculty member there meant they typically, if they had one position that they wanted to hire a faculty member for, they would hire like 5. And then they would basically just tell them, okay, you fight it out for 3 or 4 years and we'll decide which one to keep. So you competed against your colleagues. And in Berkeley, they could only ever hire one person if they had one position. And you competed against the standard. So, you know, you weren't competing against your colleagues, you were competing against the standard. And I understood that at that time, and so that's why I came to Berkeley. That's sort of the end of my story. I said how I got to Berkeley. How I got to Berkeley, and that was it. Okay.
We're a little bit behind schedule, but not too behind schedule, actually. So I think this is the end of the...
Oh, the only person here who ever went to Wabasiko is Frank. and we went fishing together, right? Yeah.
And you looked at the big rice combines.
Yeah, right. We went farming also.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna call it a day and meet at the faculty club at 5 p.m.